Hello everyone, thank you for coming. I'm gonna talk to you today about the Minoan lion. My name is Cosette, and I'm a sky dancer priestess of the Mount Shasta Goddess Temple, and I'm also a student in Via Carmen Pythia, which is the temple's Sibyl training program. I'm a Cuban American living in Melbourne, Australia. My fascination with the Minoan snake goddess began with this book, When God Was a Woman by Merlin Stone. I found and read this in high school, and even though it is not specifically about this culture and this goddess, the cover at that time featured her, and so my curiosity was piqued, and I've been fascinated by her ever since. So in today's presentation, I'm going to provide a brief introduction to the Minoan civilization, and then we'll talk more about the Minoan lion and a little bit also about how to bring Minoan culture and religion into your modern practice. The Minoan civilization was a Bronze Age Aegean civilization on Crete and other Aegean islands from about 3500 BCE to 1100 BCE. I made this rough timeline to show where the Minoans sit in the history of ancient Greece. The stories that we have about the Minoan civilization are the result of 2,000 years of oral history mythologized by the Greek writers. While we may think of the Minoans as Greek because Crete and Santorini and these other islands are today part of Greece, they were not Greek then. The people who settled Crete during the Neolithic era came from Anatolia, and the Minoans did not speak the Greek language of the Mycenaeans. We don't even know what they called themselves. Minoan refers to the mythical king Minos of Knossos, a figure in Greek mythology. German classical historian Karl Heck used that term in a book in 1825, and Sir Arthur Evans, who excavated Crete, applied it, and then that word has stayed with us today. Many of our contemporary ideas about the Minoans go back to Evans. The Minoans were agricultural, mercantile, and engaged significantly in overseas trade, perhaps dominating trade in the Mediterranean at this time, and they seem to have had more in common with Egypt and the Near East palatial civilizations than with Mycenaean Greece. The Minoans had writing, Cretan hieroglyphics, and Linear A script, but neither of these have been deciphered. Linear B, a script used in Mycenaean Greek, is the most ancient form of the Greek language, and it is descended from Linear A. Linear B was deciphered in 1952, and it seems to have been chiefly used in administrative contexts. So, for example, the clay tablet shown here contains information on the distribution of cattle, pig, and deer hides to shoe and saddle makers. Nevertheless, Linear B gives us some insights into Linear A, and it records various gods, some of which are identified in Linear A. Dictina, the Lady of Nets, was the goddess of Mount Dicte. She was conflated with Britomardis, a Greek goddess of mountains and hunting worshipped on Crete. Eleuthia is probably Aletheia, a goddess of childbirth and midwifery. Potnia da Purito, the mistress of the labyrinth, which may be Ariadne. Atana Potnia, possibly Athena. Enulaios is a name that appears in the Iliad as an epithet of Ares, and Payawan, which became an epithet of Apollo. So how do we know what we know about the Minoan civilization? We know the Minoans primarily through material culture, the maze-like palaces and villas and sacred places, peak sanctuaries, burial sites. We also know them through their art, their vibrant frescoes. We know them through their tools, their pottery and metal vessels, weapons, jewelry, impression seals, and the genetic study of Minoan remains. So here we have the figure that has become popularly known as the Minoan snake goddess, and this is, I believe, how she was actually found without her arm and her head. A bowl-shaped rhyton, a vase, the labrys. This is a gold ring with lapis lazuli. This figure is referred to as the master of animals. It's a pendant. We have a seal, which probably is a goddess in the center because she's elevated over the others, and some female figures or worshippers or priestesses. And this may be a goddess, but it is more likely a priestess or just a worshipper performing a ritual gesture. Although the animals that we most commonly and strongly associate with the Minoans are snakes and bulls, they depicted a wide range of animals in their art, including a lot of marine fauna, monkeys, gazelles, horses, birds, bees, dogs, goats, pigs, deer, spiders, scarabs, and snails. They also depicted fantastic creatures which they largely adopted from Mesopotamia and Egypt, such as the griffin, the sphinx, this creature that has become known as the Minoan genius, the Minoan dragon, of course the bull-headed man, which we call the Minotaur, and other human-animal hybrids such as the bird lady shown here. So let's talk about the Minoan lion. Lions are native to Africa and India, but small populations of native lions roamed in Southeast Europe during the Neolithic period, and they were certainly in Greece during the Bronze Age. No lion remains have been reported from Crete, but the Minoans definitely knew lions, if not from mainland Greece, then from ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. In Minoan art, lions appear predominantly in seals. So seals are carved from gemstones, metal, ivory, softstone. They're pocket-sized. They're small, usually about an inch, sometimes a little larger. They're used to identify documents and objects. They're the most common surviving type of Minoan art after pottery. They could be pierced and worn on a string, and that suggests too that they may have been used as talismans and also in magic. They depicted Cretan hieroglyphs, patterns, animals, human figures, trees, flowers, vases, ships, and chariots. The images are about the size of your fingernail, and there are thousands of them. Here's one example of a gold signet ring and the impression that it makes with the bull leaping. Sometimes lions are just lions. Adult and juvenile lions appear sitting, walking, running, suckling, playing. They are shown hunting and encircling prey and grasping them. Lions are not shown eating, sleeping, mating, or climbing trees. These images may depict hunting, defense, sport, or ceremony. We don't really know. Lions are animals both real and imagined. As a real animal, they're threats. They live in the wilderness and mountains, places outside of civilization. And then lion behavior is also analogous to human military tactics, coordination, stealth, surprise, and speed. And images like this could represent the defeat of enemies and Crete's power and dominance in the Aegean. Sometimes lions appear like this, and these kinds of images suggest astrological connections. The bull was an important and sacred animal to the Minoans, and they would have known the constellation Taurus, and the bull had lunar associations. Meanwhile, the lion was associated with the sun in ancient Egypt and Persia. The constellation Leo was also known as early as 4000 BCE, so the Minoans probably knew it, and they would have associated it with the sun. In these seals, lions appear domesticated. These may point to agricultural astrology. Leo marks the end of the summer and the harvesting season begins. The clothing on this figure may indicate that he's a priest or at least a member of the elite. The lion is also a fierce protector and could be acting as a guard or a symbol of royalty and divinity. We sometimes see a male figure flanked by two lions, and this is typically referred to as a master of animals, much like the pendant we saw in an earlier slide. Unlike male figures, which may be accompanied by one or two lions, when female figures are accompanied by lions, there's always two. These are all very likely goddesses or priestesses. The labrys, such as here and here, is only ever depicted with female figures. And goddesses are sometimes seen sitting this way while other figures around them are standing. And here in this last seal, she's up high on the mountain, and this male figure is performing a ceremonial salute similar to the one we saw earlier with the artifacts. She holds something like a staff, similar to one we saw a male figure holding, and here we have the lions acting as her guardians and symbols of her power. The Minoans worshipped several deities, but some scholars believe that the primary deity was a solar goddess, and images with lions seem to support that idea. Returning for a moment to this image is thought to depict her standing on top of a mountain. Mount Ida in Crete is the island's highest summit, sacred to the goddess Rhea. It's the location of the Idaean cave in which she gave birth to Zeus and hid him from his father Kronos. Crete was the earliest seat of the worship of Rhea, and she was identified with Cybele, the Anatolian goddess who is also depicted as flanked by lions. The Minoans may have adopted lion imagery from the Near East. Some people casually observe these two images and wonder if there's a relationship between them. In Laura Perry's Modern Minoan Paganism, they call this figure the Red Warrior and a son, consort, or protector of the goddess Rhea. Sometimes they call him the Lion of Rhea. The reason they call him the Red Warrior is because in Minoan art, where we can see color, male figures are typically depicted having reddish skin, and the female figures are depicted in the color white. And the reason that people can't help but observe and wonder whether there's a relationship here is because of this position and the clothes, and it looks like she's handing him this staff and he may be receiving it, and of course the presence of the lions. There are a number of seals that depict a male figure holding a staff or a spear like this, and sometimes in front of a female figure, sometimes also floating slightly above, and in the cases where he's floating above her, he's depicted much smaller than her, more diminutive. So it always really emphasizes that the goddess, or at least the female figure, appears to be more important. A small number of lion depictions exist in other media, usually raita, vases for pouring, and also some frescoes. There's this beautiful alabaster lioness head rhyton excavated from the palace at Knossos. The location and the medium suggest that it was used by the palace elites. There's this engraving of a lion in Thera, Santorini. This blade is that of the lion hunt dagger. It was found in a Mycenaean shaft grave, but it's thought to have been made by a Cretan. It shows a fighting scene with lions in gold and silver. This was not a functional weapon. This was a burial good for a powerful and wealthy citizen. And this one is I think a very cute Minoan clay lion's head rhyton from Cythera, Santorini. Of course, we have to talk about the Lion Gate. The Lion Gate in Mycenae, southern Greece, was erected around 1250 BCE during the decline of the Minoan civilization, which ended in 1100 BCE. The pillar of the Lion Gate was done in a Minoan style, and it's thought that this relief shows a continuity of religious imagery. The Mycenaeans adopted a bit of culture from the Minoans. To summarize what the lion represents in Minoan art, it represents a threat, a dangerous predator that lives in wild and uncivilized places and liminal places. It represents a guardian. It is a guardian. It's fierce and courageous. It has astrological associations. It's related to the sun, the end of summer, and agriculture. And of course, it is a symbol of the goddess and of royal power. It's impossible to practice a reconstruction of the Minoan religion. We need to learn more about it, but the scholarship of the early 20th century influenced the goddess movement and inspired contemporary practices. The most notable of these are the Minoan Brotherhood and modern Minoan paganism. In response to the heteronormative approaches of traditional witchcraft in the 1970s, Eddie Baczynski, a prominent Wiccan and gay rights activist, founded the Minoan Brotherhood as a men's initiatory tradition of the craft, celebrating life, men, and loving men, and magic in a primarily Cretan context. Basically, the Minoan Brotherhood adopted a Gardnerian framework and then it blended it with Cretan and Minoan elements. The Minoan Brotherhood is still alive and well. Here is a lovely image of an altar from one of the groves in Chicago from 2018, and you can still find them online. There's also a Minoan sisterhood that was founded by Lady Rhea, a Wiccan high priestess, Gardnerian, also a lesbian and a friend of Eddie Baczynski. I think she still owns a shop, runs a shop in New York. Another contemporary practice is Laura Perry's modern Minoan paganism. In 2014, pagan artist and author Laura Perry created a Facebook group that led to the founding of modern Minoan paganism. This revivalist tradition has developed a pantheon, sacred calendar, and rituals. She just released, or is about to release, the second edition of her book, Labyrinths and Horns. How do you bring the lion and its energy into your life? The lion can be your guide. It can guide you safely through dangerous places, through liminal spaces as well. The lion is your guardian. You can invoke its protection against threats, and you can let the lion guard the gates that lead to you. The lion can be your source of power. You can invoke the vitality of the lion and the sun for courage, confidence, and determination. And it can be a symbol of your power, representing your leadership, authority, and divinity.